Hey, folks, welcome to This Week in History with Mike and Will. I'm Mike.
I'm Will.
And we are who we are.
Yeah.
And what we do is every week, Will picks an event from history, and then he has 1 hour to explain that moment, that event, that thing,
the guy,
the person,
girl,
whatever.
the person.
He has an hour to explain it to me, why it's relevant.
Yeah.
And so this week, we are discussing
Charles the First.
Charles the First.
England.
Of England, lest you think
This
it was
is-
another Charles.
Yeah, this is his birthday.
Okay.
That
Happy
we're talking
birthday,
about.
Charles the First.
The 19th of November, 1600.
All right.
That's it.
You got 1 hour to
I
explain
was
it
like,
to me,
it said
Will.
160. I was like, oh, I just wrote really badly. I
Are
got it
you
now.
ready?
I'm ready, sir.
I'll begin.
Okay, so Charles the First.
Yes.
He's obviously king.
King Charles the First.
King Charles the First. He was not originally supposed to be king.
Was not born
He
king.
was not born king. He was the second son. His brother Henry was supposed to be king.
Oh, okay.
So James the Sixth and First, if we remember him. That hurts your
James the Sixth and the First.
brain. And the first. So
Same-
James the
same
Sixth
guy.
of Scotland
Yes.
and also James the First of England was given the throne by Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
James is
It's like they're keeping sports stats on
right.
themselves.
Yeah, Sixth and First. Looks like he's sitting on the throne today, folks, but tomorrow he might be in England.
And they're off.
And they're up.
All right.
And it's good.
So this Charles is Charles the First.
Charles the First and nothing else. Just Charles the First.
It's just Charles.
Charles the First. Now there's a third Charles. We're up to three because
Oh,
King
now
Charles
we
the
are.
Third. He's gonna get his coronation. So somewhere along the line there's a second one.
But you don't know anything about that one.
I know a little bit. This guy's his dad.
Let's move on.
There we go. so James the Sixth and First.
Yes.
Is the first king of England who's from the House of Stuart because he's Scottish.
Right.
Scottish king. All right. And he married Anne of Denmark. I can't do a Danish accent. Well,
Maybe you can.
I
Maybe
probably,
you
maybe
don't.
I just need to hear Danish people. It'll just come out like Swedish. And
Yeah.
Anne of Denmark. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Norwegian, and that's not right.
Right.
So, yeah, James married Anne of Denmark. So high power couple.
Power couple?
Power couple. And
Call them Jan. Yeah. I
Jan.
can't. Jan.
Jan or Aim.
Yeah.
Ames.
It's not exciting.
Ames.
Ames.
Ams.
Move it on.
Yeah, that one's dead.
Power couple names I don't care for.
I don't care
In general.
In
The
general,
concept.
Yeah.
And then when you hit this one, you can't do it.
Yeah, if it's single syllables.
Yeah, because you're not saving time.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit.
Right.
So, and you get weird combinations. Some of them could be fun. Like, I don't know, Genghis Khan probably had like a wife. And if he married a Jennifer, it could be Gennifer.
Jennifer?
Gengifer.
My favorite is Chihuahua and Pug,
Oh,
which is a Chug.
a chug. I thought it would be like a Chihuahua. It's a chug?
Chug.
That's amazing. Okay,
they're-
I want to see that.
They're
now.
cute. Look them
I
up.
bet.
Here, here's a
Check,
picture right
there
there.
you
Ding. All right, moving on.
Moving right along. Chugs. Love it. So Charles is born in Scotland,
Okay.
in the land of Fife. It's like a precinct.
Okay.
I think it would count as like a county.
Yeah.
I forget what they call them in Scotland. It's a different term.
Okay.
In
Is that where
England,
the
they have like shires.
Is
And,
that where the little flute comes from?
I don't think so, but they might have Fifes in Fife.
I would
Spelled
hope.
the same way.
Yeah.
F-I-F-E.
I bet it came from there.
Fife. So his brother Harry was supposed to be king. He was the heir apparent. He died because everybody just randomly dies back then. I did not look up how he died. It was
Okay.
not of paramount importance.
But
to
late
this guy's stories.
1500s, probably some disease.
Yeah. So yeah, he died in 1612. So Charles is 12, going 12 years, just thinking, I'm not going to be king. I don't have to worry about anything.
I just have to enjoy royalty.
Yes. Unfortunately, he was a bit of a shy kid because he had a stammer.
Oh.
And he had a residual stammer for the rest of his life. So
Oh.
he didn't like to talk because being king and having a stammer, people were like, what? And it was like a sign of weakness. So rather than, it's kind of like rather than speak and, you know,
Show the world you're an idiot.
Idiot,
something like
yeah, that kind of. What is it? Is like best to remain silent and have people think you're a fool than speak and have them
And
know,
remove all doubt.
Remove all doubt. That's
Yes.
it. That's a good thing. So his is more of a rather than speak and have people think you're dumb because you have a stammer. Just stand there and be quiet and be a jerk.
Yeah.
That's kind of his view.
Hey,
on
man.
things.
Royalty can choose that.
but-
Now, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This didn't that happen to? Wasn't that what the king's speech is about? Different king.
Different king,
But same
he
problem?
did. He had a horrible stammer.
All right.
Yes, I think that was George, like the 8th.
Maybe
there's a
inbreeding's
lot of
not the
Georges.
best idea.
Don't do it, kids.
All right, carrying on.
Carrying on. That was good. Sorry. So he's still trying to be prince, right? He's learns royalty, how to do things.
Doing princely things.
Doing princely things. And he is kind of taken under the wing of James's friend and possible lover, the Duke of Buckingham.
The Duke of Buckingham?
The Duke of Buckingham.
Well, if he's not gay, that's a perfect name for a gay.
I'm the Duke of Buckingham.
Yes.
And if you look at how he's dressed,
Oh,
that's the Duke of Buckingham.
there we go.
Now, his full name was actually George. I think it's pronounced Villiers. It's French.
Okay.
But he was born in England. He's from good God, Leicestershire. I think it's
Leicestershire?
Leicestershire.
That's a cheese, too.
Yeah. Is it? I feel like they probably are just like, no, it's pronounced. It's Leicester.
Oh,
nowadays.
yeah,
It's Leicester,
Leicester.
boy. But in like Old English, would be like Leicestershire.
Mhm.
You know, but I think
Yeah.
it's Leicestershire.
Leicestershire,
I think.
Leicestershire,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's English, but yet I can't pronounce it.
Sure. Is it near Worcestershire?
It's probably.
Okay.
It's the Leicestershire, but that one's the Worcestershire.
Yeah. I'd like the Bestishire.
I would like to go to the Bestishire.
All right. Who was this? The Duke of Buckingham.
The Duke of Buckingham. So the
Born
Duke of
in
Buckingham was kind of a younger guy. He's in his 20s at this point. And he may have been involved with King James. There were rumors, there were poems written about it. I can't actually recite one of them on the show because it uses the F word.
Oh.
And we're a pretty, we're actually a PG show so
Oh,
far,
yeah,
even
so
though we
far.
talk about horrible stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny, you can talk about massacres and horrible things, and as long as you don't swear, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can swear.
We can swear, just a
We can.
little. We
This is
want
not a kid's show, per se.
No, but sometimes kids watch it.
That's true.
I've been told.
Okay.
My kid watched your show and it was great.
All right, kids.
Okay.
There's no Santa Claus.
No! I think we actually went over that in the Christmas
They
episode.
gotta grow up sometime.
So Buckingham, though, is he's like a soldier. He sees himself as like a warrior.
Okay.
He's going to go off, and he's an adventurer. He likes to go off and cause problems.
Oh.
Like usually.
Yeah.
Buckingham is actually the main antagonist in the Three Musketeers, apart from Richelieu.
Oh, okay.
So
I've
there's-
never read that, so I don't
Okay.
know. But okay.
So in the Three Musketeers, there's the Musketeers. They're the soldiers of France protecting the king. And then there's Cardinal Richelieu, who's a real guy, who's a power broker, a mover and shaker, generally portrayed as a villain because he was, a church guy and he had way too much power and he was a Catholic, and there were a lot of Protestants who hated that. And then Buckingham is like kind of working against Richelieu, he's trying to like scheme against the country. He's like a spy master, and he hires an assassin, and he's just kind of a heel.
Okay.
And then like his whole plan is he's gonna back an invasion force. Well, the reality of this is that Buckingham wanted to move up even further in like society. He was already the king's favorite, but now he's like, well, maybe I can establish like dynastic power,
I see.
and I'll tie myself to the kid too. That way, we can,
Yeah.
I'll have a job when the king dies, basically.
Okay.
So he's in charge of, like, he's not, I don't think he's in charge of it, but he helps broker a marriage proposal. The original marriage proposal was with a Spanish woman. Her name was Infanta Maria. Now, the problem with this is the Spanish Armada was a thing, like, not too long ago in England. Like, it was,
Yeah.
the Spanish and the English do not get along well, and it's largely tied to religion.
Okay.
They're Catholic. England is Protestant. Very proud of it. That's something that they're worried about with the whole Stuart monarchy, is they're all raised Catholic, and they have to rule over a Protestant nation.
Of all the different religious fightings, it always strikes me as weird that, like, because Catholic and Protestant are still both, like,
They still worship the same guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
That seems like the stupidest. Of
That's a
fighting.
really dumb
at least
it's literally just like, well, you know, you write in cursive versus you
Yeah.
do printing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's very little
I can see the ones where I believe in a totally different god and system
Yep.
than yours. Oh, yes,
Yep.
now we need to fight.
Well, it's also really stupid when they like hate Jewish people or Muslims because apparently they all worship the same singular Abrahamic God. Like the God of Abraham is the same God for all three religions, and yet how many of them just hate each other? Just want to kill each other.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get yelled at for going, well, how come you're belittling it? Because it's honestly why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, what's the point?
Killing any set of killing in the
If you're
religion
killing somebody
seems-
for religious purposes, your religion's not great.
Yeah, no, or you're following it weird.
Yeah, you're doing it wrong. I feel like you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because especially like the best one is like in Christianity, it's all like Jesus was like, don't kill anybody.
Yeah.
The meek will inherit the earth. If you're going around killing people, it's probably the meek.
And people read it and went, I mean, we could kill some people,
Let's
all right?
do- yeah. No. Did I? No.
Yeah, I know, but we could kill some, though.
No. But
Thanks,
Who-
Jesus. Who's
No.
got the nails?
me, damn it. Who's got the nails? But yeah, it is very silly in
Right.
fighting to have this. A lot of the religious wars back then too are also used as like religion is used as a pretext to invade another country.
Right.
You're like, oh well, they're dirty Protestants. Now I have the blessing of the Pope.
Yeah.
Because for a while, Catholic nations were not. It was frowned upon if a Catholic nation fought like another Catholic nation.
Yeah.
The Pope would go,
We have this book.
where's
about
the
this.
Holy Roman Emperor? Go smack that guy. Like that was the thing. The Pope could call up some other king that was like a better Christian and go smack that guy for me.
Better Christian.
Yep, that was the thing. He's like, who's the best Christian? Who likes the Pope the most?
Okay.
Go hit your neighbor king in the face
Okay.
and take his toys away, like because he's being a bad kid. Send him to his room without supper. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
All right.
I don't know if this had anything to do with the story. So
It does,
okay,
because
well,
it gets worse. Because
Oh,
it's
perfect.
even worse
Good.
with the religious infighting. It
All right,
gets
so
dumber. It
Duke-
gets dumber.
Gets
So the Duke is like, yeah, we'll have this wedding. The second he announces that they're going to marry the Protestant prince to a Catholic wife, everybody freaks out. Like the peasants are not even happy about it. Normally they don't
Yeah,
care
yeah.
much. They're like, as long as we don't die, we don't care much.
Yeah,
but
they
this
don't.
is during the Reformation. This is
Oh.
during the Enlightenment. So people
everyone's
are
been
reading.
whipped up.
Yep, and they also have this tie to very recent Spanish aggression. Like England didn't invade Spain.
Mm,
Spain tried to kill England.
I see.
So they have some tension there.
Okay.
So they're not wild about it. And apparently while Buckingham was there to negotiate the wedding
Mhm.
and the betrothal, he was just horrible. He like sabotaged the whole thing with his behavior. It was so bad that the diplomat from Spain in England demanded he be executed for his behavior.
What was he doing?
I have no idea. It's just like his personality was so vile and offensive to them. Maybe he made crude jokes, which he was known for. He did make crude jokes. He was a soldier type, so he said whatever he wanted. And he also was the king's favorite, so he probably thought he was invincible.
Oh, okay.
I can say and do whatever I want. And James would protect him.
And then became a little bit of a bridezilla.
Yeah, a
Perhaps.
little bit.
Okay.
And, you know, we don't even know, like, Charles' feeling on this, because he's just being bartered away, basically.
Oh, sure. And
he
he's
doesn't-
quiet.
Yeah, he's quiet, and he is. He's probably just sitting there slowly like,
Do you have a mustache?
yes. He did have a mustache.
Okay, good.
So he's,
Do we have a picture of Charles?
we have Charles right there with his mustache.
Ooh, lovely.
And he was kind of standoffish because of his stammer and all these other things, I'm sure, being raised to be just very uptight and proper and all
Sure.
this. And Buckingham is a forceful personality, so he's doing all the talking, and he just ruins the entire marriage contract. I don't know if Buckingham did this on purpose, because maybe he didn't think it was a good, maybe he thought it was a good match initially, and then was like, ooh, this is a bad idea.
Okay.
Undermine. And then he goes back and he's like, you know what? We're declaring war on Spain.
Oh.
So he starts drumming up this idea that we got to go fight the Spanish now.
Maybe he did it.
Well, if he wants to fight the Spanish, you need allies.
Yes.
And Spain's nearest neighbors, France.
Yeah.
So now he's like, I'll work with France.
Oh.
Even though he's kind of been undermining France. He like doesn't like Cardinal Richelieu.
Okay. Yeah, and France and England haven't had.
And they don't have a great history either. There was that whole 100 Years' War thing.
Yeah.
But
that
they're
was recent. Right?
yeah, that was like 200 years, not even 200 years ago. So England just is this. They don't get on well with their neighbors. Their neighbors don't get on well with them. But sometimes they become friends with one neighbor to beat up the other neighbor, and vice versa. And at this time, Spain has so much power because of Charles V and his huge family. Different Charles.
Different Charles. Spain Charles.
Different Spain Charles. But
Char-
also,
Charo.
he's from the House of Habsburg. So he's like controlling Austria, and he's got parts of Italy. He's got Spain. He has huge overseas empires that have been built up. I think Charles is gone by this point, but his heirs do. We're talking about like all of the land that is controlled by Spain in the Americas. They have stuff out in like Indonesia. They've got stuff everywhere, and England hasn't had its rise to power yet.
Okay.
Where they're like, oh yeah, we're great. Like they have Jamestown, they have like some of the Western
Yeah,
colonies.
Western colonies.
They have some of the colonies, but they're not that big of a deal yet,
Okay.
right? And England hasn't reached that it's the imperial might of England stage yet.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, Spain's the powerhouse. So the idea of Spain getting any more power makes France not happy either. France doesn't like that. So he's like, okay, we'll work with France.
Yeah.
We'll make some friends. So you're gonna marry a French girl instead of a Spanish girl.
He's trying to marry off Charles?
Still trying to marry off Charles.
Okay.
So within a year, he flips it around. He's
How do you feel about French girls?
French girl? And
Hear me out. What about a Swedish girl?
He introduces him to Henrietta Maria of France.
Henrietta Maria?
Yes.
All right.
So that's the plan. Is he's going to marry her now. During this time, while they're getting everything set, James the Sixth and First becomes the previous king. He dies.
James the X.
James the Sixth and First and last named like that.
Okay, good. Because that was getting complicated.
It's getting complicated. Yes. So he's gone. And on 27 March 1625, Charles becomes king at the ripe age of 25. So not the youngest king ever by a long shot, and not the.
Yeah.
Not he's not been around.
Seems like a good age to be a king.
It's a good age to come into your power.
Sure.
That's fine. Especially at that time. He might have 5 years left.
That's true.
You don't know. It's brutal. So Buckingham, it has engineered this marriage. Like, yeah, all right, cool. You're going to marry her now. You're the king.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to go off without a hitch.
Okay, don't screw it up, Buckingham.
Buckingham does not screw this one up, and they get married. The problem is she's Catholic, so the people are still pissed.
Same problem as before.
They're like,
No,
all right,
same problem.
just because you switch countries doesn't mean we're okay with it being
We don't understand
Catholic.
Spanish. We don't understand French.
What's going on?
As far as we're concerned, same thing.
Like, I just keep picturing like as they're negotiating, it's the classic joke of the English cop comes in with the helmet and the stickers. What's all this then?
What's all this in?
What's all this then?
Hello.
Hello? What's all
Catholic.
this then? Catholic girl, eh? What's she doing here? You from here, miss? You speak English?
No.
No.
Oh, that's the same in all three languages.
Ah,
so that should
French
be
girl,
fine.
eh? French girl. How can you tell? From the hair. It's all piled up on your head
Oh.
like.
You make a lovely French girl.
Got a huge wig. Anyway, this is the time when people start wearing wigs. So
Okay.
This is the thing. So they get married. It is not a great marriage. Charles has been raised to believe in the divine right of kings.
Well, that can't
He
possibly
is-
hurt someone's ego.
Chosen by God
I'm sure he'll be fine.
to be the king.
Mm-hmm.
So it's his way or the highway.
Yeah.
They have problems with determining like what she would inherit were he to die, what her position would be. He doesn't like the retainers she brings with her. He doesn't like her religion, which is maybe
Yeah.
it's almost like they saw the writing on the wall and the people are like, yeah, we told you. Like, she's Catholic.
Yeah,
It's going to cause a problem.
I was told she'd be fine.
But she's pretty.
Is she pretty?
Yes. That's
Okay.
her.
Oh, okay.
You don't know yet.
I've
But
been there, but I'll take your word for
after
it.
this, Yes. I would say definitely for the time, she was considered a great beauty. So yeah.
Okay.
But there was nothing like that I found that was like she was this horrible person. He was just kind of a jerk. Like,
Sure. Well,
I don't like you having other friends. but they're
It-
they're
I-
French. Now I don't have any people who speak my language who know me. There
If
was my
you-
nurse from my
if
childhood.
you believe all your decisions are
God.
decided by God and you are
Yep.
the king,
Yeah.
I can't imagine that makes you fun to
Yeah.
play games with.
So this should set the tone for his rule.
Yeah.
Because it's partially his daddy's fault. His dad believed in the divine right of kings as well.
Of course.
And
it
his
is.
dad had kind of a not great relationship with Parliament. So
Oh.
Charles comes in, and the apple doesn't not only fall far from the tree, he like embraces his dad's viewpoints
Oh.
and goes further. I didn't need Parliament. And so I'm going to keep doing his voice like he's Alec Guinness, because in a movie about this, I think it's called Cromwell, he's played by Alec Guinness.
Oh.
And it's amazing. I can't remember if that's Cromwell or Charles I. And then Richard Harris, the great Irishman, plays Cromwell.
Okay.
Who, it's funny that the Irishman played him because he hated the Irish.
Oh.
He hated the Irish. As we'll find out. 'Cause
Okay.
that factors into our story.
Okay.
Being yelled at by Mr. Pitters,
Well,
the critic.
He has opinions on the
He
Irish
has
as well.
opinions on there. I think he has opinions on Cromwell.
He hates the Irish. He hates
I think he
the
hates
French.
I think he hates that Cromwell hates the Irish. I think he supports the Irish. Good job, Mr. Pitters.
It's up to you folks at home if you want to take the opinions of cats.
Yeah. They're judgy. Cats are. People at home, less so. I think
There you
they're
go.
better. I give them
right.
better. I give them more credit.
Be better than the cat.
Be better than the cat. What you will hear is commentary throughout this, I guess.
Apparently.
So there's tension in the household with Henrietta and Charles,
Okay.
and that makes the people not happy, because if they're not having a good relationship, that means no baby king, no
Oh,
future king.
well.
That threatens the family
Sure.
line. This causes problems.
Do the people know that?
They do. They can tell.
Okay.
Like the rumors
We
spread.
could tell that they're not
a
doing-
servant will tell somebody. Will tell
Oh.
somebody. Will tell somebody. Will tell somebody.
she hasn't touched him in a week.
Exactly.
They don't even share houses. She's in one castle, he's in the other. How can they have babies that way?
We barely know how babies
We
happen
don't know how
anyway.
it works. We just know two people lean against each other and there's a child. If you see a woman's ankle, she shall become pregnant.
I don't know if they knew. They knew how babies
I think they
happened.
did. They had to.
I mean, roughly.
That rough. Definitely
The ge-
roughly.
the general idea.
The general idea. Well, if I do this, baby, maybe. I don't know. I don't know why it happened.
But humans had to figure that at some point. Figure that out. And go,
I
hey.
think at the start, the humans are like, yeah, this will make a baby.
Oh. Okay, moving
Yeah.
on.
So Buckingham is around still until and he's being tied to Charles, like being like his ally. He's the only guy left over from James's court that's
Oh.
still kept in power.
So there, and he's 50% success rate now so far in general.
Yeah, with marriages.
Yeah.
However, his little war plans, he decides instead of invading Spain, everybody thinks because of this marriage to Henrietta that Buckingham is a pro-Catholic.
Oh.
So they think he's a papist, and they don't
Okay.
want him in power. And he's like, no, I'm staunchly Protestant.
okay.
Ha ha! And to prove it, I shall help the Huguenots in France. So the Huguenots are a group of actually mostly pretty chill Protestants.
Okay.
They were an early Protestant group who were more. They originally started with like humanitarian interests and less power in the church, more power to the people. Church services should be held in the common language, that kind of a thing.
Oh,
So
okay.
of course, church hates that.
Gotcha.
And this was seen as like an attack then against the king because he's Catholic and all this other stuff. So they were a rebel faction. Eventually, the Huguenots did escalate to assassination. They killed the previous king of France,
Oh.
allegedly. The king
Someone
was
did.
executed
Okay.
in his carriage. A guy just walked up during a parade, pulled a gun, and pop. Good job, guns, making assassination totally easy.
Okay.
Great.
Huguenots.
So the Huguenots, though, created it was already a fortress, but they made their bastion around this place called La Rochelle. And La Rochelle is famous for its sturdiness and ability to withstand a siege.
Oh.
So Buckingham's like, we shall support the people in La Rochelle. Ha ha!
Okay.
against the fight against the French.
A fight that he...
Even though we want to fight the Spanish, we're
Got it.
going to help the French fight the French to prove that we're Protestant so that we can go fight the Catholic. It's not a great plan.
Yeah.
No. And on paper, his plans would have worked, but none of them pan out.
Well, because it seems vague. The enemy seems vague.
It seems really vague. It's like, okay, we're going to support the equivalent of an insurgency. Well, it's not an insurgency because they're not from another place. So they're the insurgency. English would be the insurgents. We're going to come in and we're going to finance a rebellion of guys that we're kind of allies with.
All right. So just some early CIA kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Got
And it goes...
that works great all the time. Every time.
It goes as well as the CIA stuff would go with
Yeah.
no communication.
Perfect.
And everybody's on like wooden boats, and the guns don't shoot fast.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sure it all worked out fine.
Yeah, and it did. La Rochelle fell. The Huguenots almost got wiped out entirely. There was a peace treaty. What wound up happening is Buckingham ended up helping Richelieu control the country more. Like he actually ended up like destroying Richelieu's enemies.
So you're welcome?
Yeah, so the guy like he's trying to like kind of get power away from so that he can like prove I'm good Protestant and all this. He actually helps out a lot.
I don't think Buckingham's good at this.
He's not really great at it. So he decides he's going to go raise another army and
Why
start
not?
another war
Sure.
and do all this stuff, go on another adventure.
Okay.
They're not sure if he's going to continue to try to like raid the coast of France or if he's going to go into Spain. He's got all these aspirations. So he goes to what you typically did is you recruited at taverns. That's where all the old soldiers hung out.
So the best soldiers are.
Well,
Easiest to convince them there.
a guy that he passed over for promotion didn't really appreciate that and walked up to him and stabbed him. to
Oh
death.
no, to death.
Yeah, stabbed him.
Well-
Apparently, like the eyewitness account is that he got stabbed in the back, turned and said, "Villain!" Yanked the knife out, walked towards the guy, and just face planted. Dead.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Buckingham.
Yeah. Buckingham could probably get his own episode. He's kind of a
Yeah.
wild
Yeah,
guy. But all of this is directly tied to Charles, right? That was his guy.
Yeah.
That was
okay.
his dad's favorite. That was his guy.
Yeah.
That was his weird uncle who sometimes spent the night at dad's house.
Mhm.
Allegedly.
Mhm.
So Charles has this like albatross around his neck. The guy's dead, yay,
Yeah.
but
No more problems there.
no problems there. But the fallout of all of his decisions, everything he did, it had the royal backing. It wasn't like he just went out and did it.
Sure.
And if he did, it's like, did Charles say go do this thing, which is bad, or was he such an inept king that this guy that he had
That
no
this thing
control over his own
happened anyway,
guy?
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that his own guy was just going off doing stuff.
All right.
Like either one is bad.
But he's gone, so that
So
it
he's
should be
gone.
no worse.
It
No.
should be no worse, and yet.
Oh, okay.
So Charles doesn't have the best advisors, as we've seen.
Apparently not.
That was his best advisor.
Okay.
Okay. And Charles gets it in his head. I'm going to be the greatest king, and no one will tell me what to do ever.
Yes.
Ever. So he starts to increase taxes. He wants money.
Sure.
Money lets him have a war if he wants a war.
And who
and
doesn't
it
want a
lets
war?
him have a nice house if he wants a nice house.
yeah.
It lets him do whatever he wants.
Right. But they work in enough money.
And
he needs more.
the way that the financial system in England works at this time is the king basically has like his own personal finances, and then Parliament controls the majority of taxation.
Okay.
There are some old like feudal levies from like the Middle Ages that he can tap into, and there's certain things that go directly into his personal treasury that he can get. There's also his own lands and his own rents.
Yeah.
But Parliament controls the purse strings. Kind of like how in the United States, Congress controls the purse strings.
Yeah.
That's its main thing. Is it's supposed to go, okay, no money, no spending.
Yes.
Or lots of money, lots of spending.
Yes.
Or whatever they want.
And yet he's the king.
And yet he's the king. So he thinks, I should have control over all of this,
Yes.
and I shouldn't have to listen to anyone. So he starts taxing tonnage. The bigger the ship and the heavier the ship, you have to pay more taxes.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable, except this directly impacts the wealthy and the merchant classes.
But not the feather merchants.
But not the feather merchants. Exactly. They're like, ha! Should have built in feathers. And then there's all sorts of other things that he starts to tax on.
Okay.
Well, this causes a huge problem.
Yeah, that never. And then
For the
people
merchant
love taxes.
and even the less wealthy people are getting negatively impacted by this because we're talking like fishermen.
Oh yeah.
And
Sure.
suddenly they have a new tax that they have to handle. He handled them protesting this in a fairly rough fashion. Like if people complained, he just threw them in jail. He'd have them
okay.
beat up.
All right.
He
Well,
didn't like go around decapitating people. He did.
hey, that's a step ahead. That's
he
a
did
step
slice
forward.
off a guy's ears.
Okay.
that didn't
You gotta
go
send
wrong.
a message sometimes.
That didn't
I
go
don't
wrong.
know.
So
I'm just saying it's a step ahead from just killing them.
right. So Parliament calls itself together. Normally he's supposed to like say, you know, do this. It's like Parliament is not a daily thing.
We should have a meeting.
And Parliament's like, all right, the second we get Parliament, we're doing some stuff.
Let's talk about this.
So
king
he
fella.
calls Parliament. Parliament's supposed to meet up every 3 years to talk about stuff.
Every 3 years.
Every
Once
3 years.
Every 3 years.
Once every 3 years. Now this session
What a
doesn't last
gig.
like a day. It can last months.
Okay.
And you're not like paid for it because you're a lord. So the House of Lords is literally every guy who's considered a noble, a lord, sits in the House of Lords, and then the House of Commons has representation,
Okay.
which shifts. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. Nowadays, it seems like it's a better system of equal representation, but back then they could be like, you get 5 peasants. That's it. Also, they don't have as much voting power as the Lords do.
Right.
So at this point, the Lords run the show. But the House of Commons has a say. They're supposed to anyway.
Right.
But there was a time I think where the House of Commons had like between all of them 1 vote, and then the Lords each had an individual vote,
Oh.
like that kind of. Like,
we all have 1 vote.
Yeah.
Ours count for more.
ours
but
count for more.
We
Yeah,
all,
we each individually get 1 vote, and then
Got it.
you guys all get 1 total
There you
vote.
go. See, everyone gets 1.
I think it actually is something similar to that though at this time, where it's the House of Commons gets like a few group votes that they count towards,
Okay.
and then the House of Lords each get an individual.
Got it.
Which is brutal.
Yes.
So if all the lords agree, like, nope, peasants suck,
Yes.
lords win, peasants 0.
Can't imagine that the lords would all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of times where the lords do side with like the House of Commons because
sure.
they're like, no, it's beneficial to them, and in the end, it's beneficial to us. So
That
it's,
would be the
you know,
only time. I
They
would
don't.
imagine.
Yeah, they don't do much of the altruistic. Yeah,
Right.
it hurts us a little, but it helps you a lot. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Seems like not worth the paperwork.
Mostly, what the House of Lords tries to do is wrangle the king, especially this king, because he's like,
I'm the king of everything, God said so.
they literally hold the Speaker of the Chamber in his chair so he can't get up and say Parliament's done.
Oh.
They physically hold this. It's like they dogpile on the guy and like, as long as he doesn't stand up and say it, he can't close Parliament.
He has to stand up to say it.
He has to. It's a whole procedural thing.
Okay.
It's the dumbest thing because like
It does sound dumb, but
you
hey,
should just be able to say it. But they're like, so this isn't illegal.
yeah, dumb problem.
Doesn't say we can't hold him in his chair.
Dumb problem, dumb solution.
Yeah. I'd like to think they just found like a really big lord. Like, go sit on him.
Go sit-
It's the inverse of Santa having a kid on his lap. The
Yeah.
kid is the speaker and Santa sits on him. He's like, we're not going nowhere until we talk this out.
I feel like after being sat on for a while, I might just say, "Oh, fine, I'll sit."
I'll just sit. Yeah.
I won't get up.
Maybe the guy was like, no, I'm fine.
Fine.
I just want to, okay. If
No more sitting on me.
everybody stop grabbing me. Okay. I don't like being touched. Just give me like a cup of coffee and I'll sit here quietly and you guys do your thing. Okay. Whatever.
Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he was really anti this whole thing.
Yeah. So what they're arguing about though is this taxation stuff. They're also flipping out about religious divisions within the country,
Oh.
and it is fairly petty.
Of course.
There are 2 major branches of this rift. There are
Within Protestant.
within Anglicanism, so specifically the Church of England.
Okay.
There's Arminianism, which is not Armenia, but Armenia. Arminius was, I believe he was Dutch,
Okay.
and he was like a pastor who talked about Calvinism and different ideas. But that was a term that kind of got used as like a kind of a catch-all.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the truest spirit of Arminianism is this concept that they're pushing. But in England, the main thing was they didn't believe in predestination. The
Okay.
Arminianists
Got it.
didn't. They seem to also have a looser approach to things, a little more chill.
Sure. So they obviously are the bad guys in this.
Because their rivals are the very famous Puritans,
Ah, yes.
who we don't like.
Well, they are decisive.
They're pretty awful with their buckles and their stupid hats, and
Yes.
they're burning women for no reason.
Right. But I mean, they're dedicated.
But
and
they are
decisive.
dedicated. So yeah, it's easy. Like it was easy to go. Oh, okay. So they hate these guys because the other guys are like, yeah, maybe the church shouldn't have total power, and the Puritans are like, what are you talking about? Burn him. Sounds like a witch.
Oh,
Looks
boy.
like a witch.
Okay.
If it looks like a witch, talks like a witch, it's a witch.
Let's get to burning.
Get
Boy,
to
I love,
burning. Get
I love
to
me a good witch burning.
Get to burning. So they like hold this guy in the chair to like so they can make measures against Arminianism and like shut it down.
Good.
And then also talk about this tonnage tax and everything else. And Charles gets so irritated with all of this that he dissolves Parliament.
Oh. He says
Permanently.
we're not doing this.
We're
anymore.
done with
We're
Parliament.
done. Okay. He can do that apparently.
Apparently, once they finally like close the session, he says he just doesn't call it for 11 years.
Oh.
They refer to this as the personal rule or the 11 years tyranny. Depends on whose side you're on.
Okay.
So this is medieval kingship. He just goes back to, all right, I'm just running the show.
Yeah. We used to do this. Let's do this. Keep doing
But
this.
it worked pretty well before.
Okay.
The problem is nothing changed for the rules. So he still does not control the purse strings of the kingdom. He cannot suddenly make all of these new taxes and other stuff. So he has to be inventive about how to get money.
Oh.
So he starts going through the books about what kings could actually tax.
Okay.
And he finds one called
Kittens.
ship money.
Oh, ship money.
Ship money. Ship money is the concept of taking coin to buy ships to protect the island. This is typically taken, you typically have a tax on coastal settlements to outfit a ship
Okay.
that is used in the Royal Navy to defend against invasion.
Yeah. And if you're on the coast, you want that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He applies it across the entire country, even
I mean,
inland.
when you think about where does the coast stop?
Where does the coast stop? On an island, especially. So he's like in the middle of England. Suddenly, people are like, "Wait, what's this for?"
Well, if you don't pay it, then they're going to bring their
This-
ships
they're-
downtown, and you don't want them bringing
You
their
don't want
ships
it-
downtown.
you don't want those ships down there. They're loud.
Dragging the ship along
Dragging
the,
the ship,
the roads.
It's huge. It just drags. It just drags the stones all over the place because it's this huge ship. And then we'd have to do another tonnage tax because it's obviously such a big ship. But you guys wouldn't want that tax, so this is much easier.
Is London the center of England at this point?
It's the major.
Is the hub?
It's the major hub.
Is where Parliament was? Is
I believe yes at this time. Yeah, London's.
you got a river there that's almost
Yeah.
a coast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's considered coastal-ish because it's just inland,
Okay.
and then you.
All right. So either way,
Yeah.
he basically
He's-
declared his whole country a coast.
Yep, he does.
Got it.
This makes the people really mad. It's
Sure.
surprisingly super unpopular. It's less popular than the tonnage tax that caused this.
What we
whole
need
thing.
a ship for?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some farmer out there, he's just doing his thing, and he's like, "What? We're here for your tonnage, your ship money. What? There's no water
I ain't
around here.
I ain't got no ship.
There's not even a creek. The biggest body of water is when I pee in the morning. What are you talking about?"
Get a little teeny ship for that.
Yeah.
Teeny pea ship.
It'd be like a dinghy.
Little dinghy.
A little dinghy.
For your dinghy.
A little dingy dingy.
PG show.
PG show. That's what you can say dingy.
Okay.
All right. It's a little ship. What? So yeah, he's making this stupid law, and people like the judges are like, well, we don't like it. He has common law judges, and they're like, well, he can technically do this.
Yeah, so nothing in the rule book says a dog can't
Yep.
play basketball.
Yep. We wouldn't advise it.
No.
They have like reservations. They even say like, we're not really wild about this,
So when we start killing people over it, it wasn't our fault.
but it's totally legitimate that he can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's not great. So now he's stacking the deck against himself. People
Perfect.
don't like this.
No.
It's not great. Meanwhile, Scotland has troubles. Scotland always seems to have troubles. The king is not actively there. Scotland feels ignored. They also have their own issues with religion. There's Presbyterianism, which is the main religion within Scotland, and then fighting with the Anglican Church. This causes a war. It's called the Bishops' War.
Oh.
and it's between different bishops, basically.
Okay.
Well,
Now the tough part with the Bishop's War is that it's got to all be
it
fought.
can only go diagonally.
Yeah.
And he's the king, so he can only move one space in a direction at a time, and he doesn't have an army.
It takes
So
forever.
it's going to take forever. And if he gets cut in the crosswinds, then he's in check, and then
Yeah, you can defeat a king with 2 bishops.
you
easily.
can.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but you could probably do it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's enough chess jokes for the hosts.
So Charles is like, well, I'm the king, and I'm going to go handle this personally.
Yes.
He still doesn't have the ability to raise taxes, so he can't raise an army. So he just kind of gets together what he can. And
Don't go to the pubs.
Yep.
That seems like a bad thing.
Didn't learn anything from Uncle Bucky. That's Uncle Buck, the original Uncle Buck. Buckingham. There we go. Except I don't recall him getting stabbed.
Right.
There we go. So he gets an army together, not a very big one, marches north into Scotland, which is a terrible idea because marching into Scotland with a little army
Yeah.
is like kicking a hornet's nest and then just standing on it. That's
Yeah.
a terrible idea. Except the hornets are big
and
and angry and have guns
And bagpipes.
and bagpipes. Yes, like this
and
is
the Moors.
and the Moor. Like there are that's like
Yeah.
he's going into rough terrain against a people who are already like equipping armies to fight, and he gets up there and goes, "Oh, I may have bitten off more than I can chew,"
Perfect, Charles.
and he realizes this
Brilliant.
isn't great. His army actually can't fight their armies,
Okay.
so he's like the impotent king.
Good job,
Like,
Charles.
I'm in here and I have an army, and could you guys stop fighting? And they don't really.
But all this time, he could make Parliament go back together
Yep.
and try to,
But he'd have to suck it up and deal with that, and then he'd have to admit that Parliament has power,
Yeah, boy.
and then he'd have to give up some of his power because he showed that he's a tyrant.
How frustrating it is to be a king.
It's just a headache after a headache. It's not even worth it, except he thinks it's totally worth
Yeah,
it.
it should be.
And then he's also like, "I'm your king, bow down to me." And the Scots are like, "No, we're fighting. Get away.
They didn't listen.
Go back."
What's the point of being a king if you can't do what you want?
Exactly. He's not a French king, so it's not good to be the king. King Louis, meanwhile, was like, it's good to be the king.
There we go.
It's all great.
Another movie reference
Another
for you
movie
folks.
We're doing as many as we can. This is the perfect time for it because we get the silly hats, fun outfits,
Sure.
big, set piece battles where you're like, why is everybody just standing there shooting at each other? This is stupid. Maybe move? We tried ducking and weaving. No. We're
till-
English.
Not
Just
till the 1700s.
stand there and take it on the chin like a man.
Good.
Okay.
It was a bullet, sir.
Well, did he last? Did he take it like a man?
His upper lip wasn't stiff enough.
Well, that's not British, is it?
No.
He should have been more English. So Scotland eventually kind of settles down. But during all of this, there's a fellow named Thomas Wentworth. He's the first Earl of Strafford. He offers to basically invade England to settle this problem.
Okay.
He's in Ireland, and he's like, I can get an army together. You're the king, and I'll put these guys down because they're rebels. Which would basically count as like an invasion of a sovereign nation, though. And all of Parliament goes, that's treason! You can't invade a country!
Are we listening to Parliament, though?
No, they
Yeah.
aren't, but they should.
Okay.
Because Parliament basically forces a new session, and they have a meeting. And they get together, and Charles is like, you can't do this. I didn't say you could do this.
But
And they're
look
like,
at us.
"No,
We did.
we did." He literally tries to arrest Parliament. It
Okay.
does not go well.
All right.
He basically gets laughed out of Parliament. His guys are going to make arrests, and then they leave. So it's just,
Yeah.
he's just, it's you either...
I thought king was the easier job.
He should have read Machiavelli, because if you're going to do something like that, you need to go all the way.
Mhm.
You can't just walk in and be like, well, we were going to kill you, but we're too weak to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you were going to kill me, but you're too... Now I'm going to beat you up.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody pulls a gun and it goes click and doesn't work, you're like, oh, I'm beating you up now.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this big stick
So-
and I'm just going to hit you till you stop moving. And that's basically what Charles does.
Okay.
He
Brought it
makes
on
a
himself.
big problem, and he makes the problem worse because again, his ego just goes wild, and he cannot accept any kind of mediation or talking this out. Parliament declares Strafford is a traitor. There's one punishment for traitors.
Oh,
They want to kill him.
Yeah, okay.
They force all of this onto Charles, like, you're going to make this succession, you're going to make this succession, you're going to make this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. And Charles is like, no, I'm not. Like, well, yeah, you are, because we're going to make you sign
There's
it if we have to.
more of us than you.
Yeah, there's a lot more of us than there
Okay.
are of you. And they have a whole trial. And
Of the king?
no, not of the king, but of this Strafford guy.
Oh, okay.
And they say, well, he's guilty.
But
So we're
basically
gonna
of the
kill
king.
Yeah,
there's like a
it's of
proxy-
his policy. Yeah. It's like
a proxy
a
trial.
proxy trial. So it's like an attack on his policy.
Yeah.
So Charles is like, well, this is stupid. What's the sentence? Death.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the kicker. He has to sign the execution.
Oh.
This is his friend.
Mm-hmm.
This is his most faithful guy. After Buckingham was gone, like, Strafford is like his guy.
Okay.
He's like, no one. He says something to the effect of like, you will never want for honor as long as I'm king. Like, you will always be treated well.
Sure.
Because the guy.
Until now.
Until. Yep. Whoops, you backed the wrong pony.
Does he sign for him?
Strafford tells him to.
That's
That's
the balls of this guy.
This guy. I would kiss this man because this man, the man. Wow, that's impressive.
Okay.
But seriously, he does. He tells the king, well, you have to sign it
Okay.
because if you don't, they're gonna saddle you with this, and then coming after you.
Yeah.
I don't mind dying for my king. And Charles is like, oh, this is my best guy. Oh, I wish I had 10 of you. But now he's.
But
now
I'm
he's
losing
got,
one.
I'm losing the one. So even if I had 10, I'm down to 9.
Can't you pardon, like, sign it, and then, now I
that's the
pardon
thing
you.
is he's like, well, what if I pardon him? What if I do this? What if I do that? And Parliament's like, no, you're going to kill this guy. We're going to make you kill your friend.
No. Parliament is
Parliament's
calling them
mad.
the bluff, I guess. All right.
Yeah, they do. They're tired of his stuff. And
Yeah.
so they say, well, no, you were going to have this guy wage war against us, basically.
Yeah.
Because he also says, like, he'd be happy to fight Parliament if needed. Like, whatever. It's like, whatever the king commands, I'm the king's man, and I will do what the king says, and I got an army.
Well, that didn't
And
work
they're
out.
like, well, you're not in Ireland anymore now, are you, laddie? So,
Hey, today. All right.
yeah. So Charles has to sign the execution of his friend. And they execute Strafford. He dies like a man. Doesn't back down on his word. He doesn't regret anything. He doesn't.
You don't
say,
know. He doesn't-
Actually, Charles. Well, I mean, he might regret. There's probably a lot of regrets. Like, oh, I regret
I
everything.
really
but
gotta-
he Englishmans it like hardcore. He just
Okay.
stiff upper lips his way through it, and they kill him.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
good
they
for him.
behead him.
Okay.
I didn't. I should have looked it up
I
because
guess.
the dude deserves that after going. No, you have to do this for yourself,
Yes.
Your Highness. That's pretty. The balls on this
Yeah,
guy. Like you
it's
said.
noble, but
It's
hey,
noble.
I don't know.
Well, because there was
Not
what
for
else?
me.
What else was he gonna do?
Not have started this. In the
Not have
first
done.
place.
Yeah, maybe not have done this. Maybe not have done this. But at least he committed.
Say
you gotta
maybe-
respect
maybe-
he committed to
Maybe
the role.
say, hey, King, how about we just grab a bunch of money and go on an island somewhere and just leave. Bye. And go like the Caribbean and just go to Elba.
That's not a
Hang
bad
out
idea.
and exile yourself.
Yeah, that worked out so well for the other guys who've done
I
it.
don't know.
Self-imposed exile always works out. Actually, for the guys who actually do retire, it does work out.
There you go.
Those Roman emperors are like, I'm done. Peace. We'll live over here on this island.
Yeah.
And
That's what I would have suggested if
yeah.
I was the Earl of Strafford.
yes, but I don't think he was probably
Okay.
not. Like, he's like, no, the king's right. So he's full on board the
Oh, that's
the
supposed to be
mysticism train of
yeah.
the whatever the king says is that's his duty.
Well, that's
He's also the first Earl of Strafford, so I'm sure that had to do with it. Like, this guy elevated him to such a high position
Oh,
because
okay.
that means he's the first time. That's the first time anybody was the Earl of this chunk of land.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. So he's got a strong sense of loyalty, and it ultimately costs him his life.
okay. Well,
Sad face.
Thomas Wentworth, we hardly knew ye.
And we did. He's literally a sentence in this, and it's unfortunate because this makes Charles furious.
Well, yes. I'd be upset.
He declares war on Parliament,
Oh.
full scale.
Him and what army?
Well, he manages to find one
Oh.
because
I mean, here's somewhere.
I believe I left my army in my other shoes. Hold on. The higher ones. The higher heels. It's the time of the high heels and the buckles.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da-da. Be right back. Don't go anywhere, Parliament. I need my army. Da, 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 da.
It's a surprise.
But the difference is, so there's the like landed rural nobility, and then like the wealthy cities, and it
Yes.
basically becomes a war between the merchants and the cities, and the nobles who live in the cities, and the hinterland.
Yes.
Which
A classic
I don't know.
confrontation.
I don't know if you could compare it to anything going on nowadays, where it's like the rural people don't like the city people and vice versa, and it causes a huge rift. But that you could also compare it to like there's more people living in the cities and they have more money than the rural people. So in the end, that's not great.
Yeah.
I'm of course not talking about today. I'm referring to the American Civil War, which was a similar situation where there was more population in the north, and that was where all the economic centers were, and they it was just... Anyway.
We will try to not draw parallels, Will. I refuse to learn things from history.
Okay.
I just want to hear
Okay.
about it.
So what he does though is instead of it, it's not like, you know, this man said something bad about our king. I've got my pitchfork. I'm gonna go stab him. It's the nobles
Okay.
are like, no, the parliaments don't screw with the king because that
Get my pitchfork for
that
me.
changes things significantly. Now this creates what they call, we call it nowadays the English Civil War.
Oh.
They just call it the Civil War. At the time, though, they called it the Great Rebellion because the Civil War wasn't used as a term until I think like the 1900s for them. So they didn't call it, like, that's a more modern version of what they call it.
Right. Just like they didn't call the 100 Years' War the 100 Years' War.
Yeah, they're just like this stupid war that never, ever ends.
Right.
Oh my God. I'm pretty sure they just called that one the war.
Or World War One. They didn't call that.
No, they called that
seemed
the Great War.
pessimistic.
They called that one the Great. Yeah, like this is the first of
This is
many.
the only one.
The first of many.
We'll do it again.
Yep, they didn't call it that until the second one came
Oh,
out.
there we go.
Until then, it was the Great War. What's so great about it? Just the sheer
It was
numbers.
big. We just meant big.
Real big. It was awful. But so this is the Great Rebellion, and it's royalists versus the parliamentarians. And the royalists are kind of fanatically loyal to the concept of the king. The king rules, and we need to learn our place. You guys mostly do. But also, this is a big, like, kings don't lose these battles.
Mm.
And we want to be on the right side when the king wins. And then we're going to get more land. We'll probably get all their stuff.
Probably.
That's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
We're getting all their stuff. The opening battles of this, it shifts. So the war itself changes midway through. This is the time of what they call pike and shot warfare.
Pike and shot.
Pike and shot. Shot spelled SHOTTE because they're fancy. But it's bullets. This is when we are mixing, we're developing a new style of warfare. We've got the pike formation, which is, spears,
Yeah,
10
pokey,
feet long,
pokey, yeah.
pokey. Traditional makes sense. We're actually going way back in time to like the Greek style of fighting. Remember we had these big formations of
Yeah.
soldiers, especially like Alexandria had his pikemen, and they just walked around with big sticks, and then they'd have like skirmishers in there throwing spears and slings and have some archers. These do this where they have a guy with what's called an arquebus, which is a big single shot gun that has a match attached to it, and you touch the match to the powder and it fires the shot.
Yes.
They
One
take a long time to load.
takes 1 week to load.
They are heavy,
Okay.
and they are not like the muskets from like the flintlock era where you squeeze the trigger and the thing goes down and goes
Yeah.
boom. These, they had like sticks.
Like handheld cannons.
And they, yes,
Yeah.
yes, literally like a hand cannon.
Yeah.
The big bore.
A nice hand cannon you got there, pal.
Yep, and then okay, yep. But it's not a refined process, really. It's loud. There's smoke everywhere. These battlefields are like a hellscape.
That's probably actually an effective part of the weapon anyway.
Mhm.
Just the boom, big boom would be
Yeah.
enough to make everyone.
It does. There's a shock value to
Yeah.
it. So originally, like our shock tactics were cavalry charging into people. You
That
have
would be
these
true.
masses of heavily armored dudes on big, nasty horses that have been trained for this, smashing into you.
That would
Shock
make me
attack.
question my decisions.
Would-
Yes.
Yeah. Or the Hannibal used his elephants.
Elephant charging at me would make me question my
That would make
life
me question
choices.
decisions.
Yes.
And if you're running across the field, all of a sudden you're BLAM! And the guy next to you just drops dead, and you didn't even see anything. Question your decisions.
Yes.
Lots of
How did I get
yeah.
here?
How did I?
Think back.
I think I want to go that way. I'm just going to follow the train of thought
Bye.
that way. Well, and then you start developing things like field cannon,
Yeah.
which is just a much bigger arquebus that are firing shots that are, this big. And that will just rip through several people. Interestingly enough, they still have reenactments of these. So we have our Civil War reenactments in America. They have the English Civil War reenactments over there,
Okay.
which is kind of an interesting thing because you have pike formations and they have to close and fight. So it'd be interesting to watch that. And actually,
Big rubber pikes.
there's an artist that I have a lot of respect. He does miniature sculpting, so he makes little soldiers.
Sure.
He's a reenactor, and he was reloading a cannon when it went off, lost his hand, and still sculpts. He's amazing. He has like a little clamp now for one of his prosthesis, and it holds the piece in place. And he's like, it's actually better.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, stiff upper lip Englishman. They're the Perry twins, Alan and I think Richard Perry. Anyway,
Okay.
they're great. Anyway, so I think he still does the reenactments too. Just
No,
I'll do it like this.
someone's got to be in the medic tent looking like an injured
Yep,
person.
yep. I would play that up. I really would. I lost the battle. The kids are just crying.
Or
That's
ketchup.
terrible. Yep. Did you use Worcestershire sauce? Well, that's where we are. We had to use it. Anyway,
Run out of time, Will.
we're out of time. So this is this era of warfare. We've got developing new tactics and all this. But the nobles typically still like, cavalry is the way to win the war.
Right.
Boy.
It always has been. It always will be.
Yes. They've developed a new way of doing cavalry now.
A horse gun.
Yes.
Oh.
Basically.
Okay. I'm sure
Pistol.
I'm sure a horse love that.
Pistols.
Okay.
Now, a pistol back then is not pew, pew, pew. It's, hold on, it's about that big. And it fires like a 70 caliber round.
Okay.
Which is, that big.
Well, you gotta hold out and ride a horse.
One-handed.
Yikes! All right.
Instead of using a lance to break up a formation, they would ride in and right before they hit the enemy, whip out a pistol, blast the shot off. But you have 20 guys in front, or however many the frontage is. So you have this line of cavalry charging. They're wearing armor on their torsos that is actually bullet-proofed. That's where the term comes from, is being proofed against bullets.
Okay.
Ways they would test it is they'd make the breastplate and they'd fire a musket against it or a pistol against it, and as long as the bullet didn't go through, they're like, that's good.
Okay.
That's all you need.
At some point, someone had to test it while wearing it, didn't they? Like after further tests.
Maybe.
We should probably test.
But yeah, you can actually see in museum pieces, sometimes they have, you'll see like a bullet hole.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Well, that
not,
one
it's not a
failed.
hole. It's not a hole. It's a dent.
Yeah.
And you can see like the bullet hit and it went back. It bent it back a little bit.
Yeah.
But these guys are also wearing what's called a buff coat because it's leather.
Yeah.
So it's like this thick leather coat that they would wear. And a lot of guys just wore that. That actually helped absorb the shock from the bullets, so it made it easier to treat the wounds. So these battles rage on. Now, the majority of the battles are fought in small engagements between like 250 guys, not big set piece battles. There are
Right.
only a few of those. So this becomes like a numbers game. Who can win these little skirmishes? Who can get guys together faster? Who can equip them quicker? And who can work well in these small clumps of men? So training becomes vital. You have to train these little groups of guys to work as independent units, as opposed to, I need 10,000 men to work in unison. It's 50 guys working perfectly together, because the pikeman's job is to protect the gunners from the cavalry. So you've got these guys getting charged by horsemen who sometimes are blasting away at them. They have to hold their line while this guy's blasting his gun and then stops to reload.
Okay.
And then you, as the guy blasting his gun, have to stop in the middle of a battlefield to go, I can't pour in too much of this powder. I'll put this little ball in there
Okay.
and make it all good. All right. Bam.
Right. So while they're doing that, other people without guns have to
Poke the other things. And meanwhile, other guys with pokey things are coming in towards them. And then a lot of the times, you're getting into the melee. People start pulling out swords and knives. It's brutal combat.
It sounds like fun.
It's also big. It takes up a lot of space because now you have guns, so you can reach out and touch somebody from really, really far away and lethally.
Touch somebody.
Yep, that's what they call it. Reach out and touch them. Hard. And with finality.
Okay.
During all of this stuff, though, a guy named Oliver Cromwell starts really developing new tactics and new styles of outfitting his troops, getting them ready for this style of warfare. And he creates the New Model Army, or he's one of the creators of it. The New Model Army uses all of these principles of pike and shot warfare, but better. It really focuses on making the smaller units independent, able to do their own thing. Different guys have different roles, but they also are trained on how to use other things. So like a pikeman can pick up a musket if he has to. Making sure people have really crisp responses to officers' commands. And then if the officer dies, they have like sergeants who can take over, or they can still just keep fighting even if they lose command. And this is, the field's smoky. There's all sorts of chaos. You can't hear maybe what that guy over there on the horse is shouting, but okay, we're fighting this thing, so let's go fight that thing. Let's do our job. This turns the tide of the war very quickly against Charles, to the point where Charles at one point is captured and imprisoned for a significant chunk of time. Then he gets out.
I promise to be good.
Yes.
And does it again and starts a new war.
I lied. I'm the king.
The entirety of this war lasts from 1642 to 1651. And that's what's called the Great Rebellion. Now, at some point in 1649, Charles is captured permanently, like his army's broken.
Okay.
And he's captured and he's taken into prison. He's held in custody, and they say, you know what? We're going to have a trial for you.
Okay.
And then in January, they put him on trial for treason against the kingdom. He is a traitor to his own people. And through the whole thing, Charles says,
none of you have the authority to charge me with anything.
And yet, one of us is on one side of the bar.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So during the trial, they determine that he is guilty. I think there are 60 members of parliament who do this. A lot of members refuse to do this.
It's a tricky vote.
He's the king. This isn't like a presidential impeachment where he's not like, there's no divine right. There's nothing like that. This is.
He may or may not be divinely chosen.
Also, there's one punishment for treason.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to kill a king.
Hey, fellas, what if we just come up with a different punishment for treason?
Because we tried that. Remember we slapped it down and we put him in prison in house arrest, and then he busted out and he started the war again? We're not doing that again.
Okay.
They find him guilty of treason, and on January 30th, he is let out, put on his knees, and after he says a prayer and a bit of talk, he puts his head on the block and thrusts his hands out to the side to signal, I'm ready, and the axeman takes his head.
Ooh.
Unlike everybody else who's had this done, they do not put his head on display. They stitch it back to his body.
Ugh.
Well, what do you think they're supposed to? That's what they do if you get decapitated nowadays.
I never really thought about it.
Yeah. So they put his head back on his body, put him in a lead coffin so it doesn't rot and get bad, and they bury him with due honors.
Okay.
Long-term effects, his kid ends up becoming king, and he hunts down every single guy who was responsible for this.
It always happens.
Those who did not actively hunt this guy down or vote against him or do not escape, he lets a lot of the parliament go. But the guys who are behind this, death penalty. There's I think 20 of them are executed for it because they killed a king.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Now, the war goes on for another year and a half, 2 years. The end results, I'm just going to read these end results because the end of the rebellion, now we're at the end, is England in total lost 190,000 people out of a population of 5 million.
Okay.
So that's 4% of their population.
That's it.
The thinking is this is counting also disease, desolation, famine, everything that came from this level of warfare that was fought. This is not battlefield casualties.
Right.
Battlefield casualties were 25,000 total during this war. So not a huge amount, but this is what happens throughout the rest of the country. 60,000 out of 1 million people in Scotland died, so that's 6%. And then Cromwell, during the latter half of the war, decided that Ireland needed to go away.
Oh.
It's Catholic.
That sounds like a
He's
big task.
hardcore Protestant. So the majority of his warfare takes place in Ireland, and it is brutal. In Ireland, 616,000 people out of 1.5 million people die by the end of this. That's 41% of the population. That is the lowest estimate. there are also 40,000 people who were sent off into indentured servitude. So, slavery.
Well, it looks like the Irish got it the worst.
Yeah. Comparatively, the numbers of people who died in the Great Famine, so what we call the Potato Famine, from 1845 to 56, was 16% of the population.
Oh.
So 2.5 times, almost 3 times as many people died relatively based on scale, like proportionally.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about that. They're like, oh yes, the Civil War. Like, oh, that was when Charles I died. No, that was when 600 some odd
Irish
thousand
died, yeah.
Irish people died because Cromwell just went ape on the. He just smashed up the country. He killed the people. He desolated the crops. He just went all out because they were like a royalist faction, and he was like, "We're not having a resurgence."
It sounds like we'll have to talk about Cromwell at some point.
Cromwell's going to be a subject of discussion. So yeah, that's the life and death of King Charles the First.
Charles the First.
I think the lesson we should really learn is the monarchs that are jerks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the king and me. Don't do that.
Yep.
Nobody.
It's gotta be tricky.
Even if divine right was a thing, not once in all of the history studies has God come down and go, "Don't kill that king."
That's true.
Not once. If it happened once,
Right.
Just once,
Then
you could
divine
use it
right
as
would
an
be a thing,
excuse.
yeah.
You could use it as an excuse, like, well, God stopped that guy from getting killed. Remember
Yeah.
that? Remember that?
Nope.
Could
But
do it
right now
again.
we're just taking your word for it.
Yeah. And why would you take their word for it when they're like, oh well, the king?
Yeah.
It's like
It does seem to advantage the king.
It kind of right. And then they're finally like, no, we killed him and we didn't all die. Well, not yet, because after this, Cromwell runs England for like 3 years.
Oh.
England becomes the Commonwealth, and it has no king for a while. Charles II is off hiding.
I would.
They just murdered my daddy. And then he comes back and he retakes the throne, and then he smashes up all these guys, and he really puts the boots to Cromwell and his ilk. It's not great.
A story for another time.
Another
though,
time.
Will,
That's
I'm
another
sure.
story. It's a nice long story. England is such a complicated history.
Well, that was the story of Charles the First.
Charles the Jerk.
If you enjoy this, please subscribe and like and all that. If you have any corrections or comments on
Yep.
what we've talked about, put those in the comments there. Or suggestions for other things you want us to talk
Yeah,
about.
I love
throw there
suggestions.
in
That
there.
helps a lot.
We'll be back next week. We'll be doing the origin of Hanukkah.
Yes.
Mm.
That's a long
It
time
should be
ago.
noted in this episode, no Jewish people were hurt. So
I wasn't gonna say anything.
2 episodes in a row, we'll be helping the Jewish people out.
Yep. Oh, also, last week, no Jewish people were harmed either.
By golly,
And the week before,
we're doing our best.
we're
to-
doing a great. Vlad Tepes, no Jews harmed.
Well, never mind. You know what? The Jews have been gotten it pretty good for us. the last couple weeks.
Well, I think it's just we're finding the parts in history where they aren't being horribly mistreated by everybody. So
Tune
next
in
week
to that
we get
next
to
week.
find out about Hanukkah and what's it all about.
There we go.
And I will try to pronounce the words properly.
We always try. We do
try.
our
I do
best.
my
We mean
best.
no offense. Also, a bonus thing which I just thought of now is Will doesn't know that I'm going to challenge him to this. I don't know how often I want you to do this. Maybe
Okay.
once every 2 months?
Okay.
Once every quarter?
Okay.
I would like a historical event from after 1900. It's like vegetables for you, Will.
I hate it.
I know.
I hate it. I'm saving those till I run out of medieval
Let's
stuff.
do quarterly maybe.
Okay, so
All right. So soon there'll be one, not next week, but in the upcoming weeks. Let's do that.
okay, boring. All right, I could have done one for next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Bye.